welcome to the firm. On the show this week, proxy advisory firm IIAS has raised questions about the manner in which N.R. Narayana Murthy was appointed on the Infosys board. When is a subsidiary not a subsidiary but a permanent establishment? ITAX ruling in the Convergys case may leave neither assessee nor revenue happy. And in a landmark move, the European Union brings to an end quarterly financial reporting for listed companies. Our top story this week. On June 1st, in a surprise move, the Infosys board approved the reappointment of founder N.R. Narayana Murthy as executive chairman. But it turns out not everyone was surprised, because the day before, the Infosys stock gained almost 3% in an otherwise losing market. This even though there had been no prior public disclosure about the board meeting or Mr. Murthy's return. The stock movement was first flagged by Sucheta Dalal's Money Life magazine, and since then, whispers of insider trading have been doing the rounds. Earlier this week, CNBC TV18 reported that SEBI may be investigating the incident and has sought details from Infosys about the people aware of Mr. Murthy's reappointment. Infosys confirmed to this channel that it has provided information sought by SEBI. It's early days, yet this is a rare governance smear on a company otherwise held up for its transparency and disclosures. Adding to Infy's woes is a report put out by proxy advisory firm IIAS alleging, how should I put it, procedural lapses in Mr. Murthy's reappointment. Well, to talk about this report, I have with me founder chairman of IIAS, Anil Singhvi. Mr. Singhvi, thank you very much for joining me. Can you take me through the sequence of events in the appointment of Mr. Murthy to the board of Infosys that has raised flags at your firm?
Menika, let's look at the chain of events. Whatever is in public domain, I'm talking about from that point of view. That Mr. Kamath approached Mr. Murthy on 4th of May 2013 with a request that he should be coming back to Infosys, and for which Mr. Murthy requested Kamath that he's going to take some time before he decides on that. Fair enough. I mean, this is something sudden. That's what he said. It was my calling and very sudden. So suddenness was there on 4th of May. Thereafter, obviously for the purpose of AGM, which is to be held on 15th of June, Infosys sent a AGM notice around 20th of May. So between 4th of May and 20th of May, definitely Mr. Narayana Murthy did not come back. Otherwise, I fail to understand why Infosys did not include his election as a AGM agenda item. After that, on 1st of June, again, this is the first event we ever heard from media and others, on this, that in the board meeting convened by Infosys on 1st of June, Mr. Narayana Murthy was appointed as additional director under section 260. Thereafter, on 6th of June, we get as a shareholder a notice from Infosys saying that Infosys received a shareholder's request under 257 on Friday the 31st May seeking election of Mr. Narayana Murthy in the ensuing general meeting on 15th of May. This sounds to me very funny, because if the notice was received by Infosys on 31st of May, there was no mention of this notice on 1st of June press release by Infosys. So when Narayana Murthy was appointed as additional director under section 260 on 1st of June, what happened to the 257 notice, why there was no mention about it? And it sounds very funny. Let me explain why. Because additional director has to retire on the ensuing annual general meeting. So theoretically, if he was appointed under section 260 on 1st of June, he would have otherwise debuted his office on 15th of June, which is the date of the AGM. Obviously, he wouldn't have appointed on 1st and retiring on 15th. So, company needed really another notice from a shareholder seeking his election to the board by shareholders on 15th of June. Since this notice requires only a 14-day period, they had very well managed in this. And this is what, to my mind, is a little bit of a flaw in this, that on 31st May, and assuming that there was a lay shareholder who sent a notice along with 500 rupees demand draft, which is required in 257. But why didn't then Infosys inform stock exchanges that they have received a notice from a shareholder and they are likely to take it to the board the 1st of June, because then they had a knowledge. They can't say that it was all of a sudden on 1st of June this board meeting was convened. So I don't think these two things are really going together, and it can't be sudden, because if the events are there from 4th of May, 1st June can't be a sudden event, and definitely not after getting this notice from a shareholder. I don't think many companies really have appointed chairman or senior people just because a shareholder has sent a notice all
right, Mr. Singhvi, allow me to play devil's advocate, because we have sent IIS's concerns to Infosys, but we've yet to hear from the company given the short time notice. Isn't it absolutely possible that the 31st May proposal by that shareholder, whose name we don't know as yet, would have not amounted to much if the company had not decided in its own wisdom to bring Mr. Murthy back? They didn't need to communicate the shareholders' proposal on the 1st of June because that was not instrumental in their making up their minds, but that was instrumental in being able to bring to the AGM the agenda issue of Mr. Murthy's reappointment, hence they only brought it up on June 6th.
I agree with you, Menaka, but look at the chain of events and look at even the company's own disclosure on 1st of June when they send this press release. They don't mention about 257, so obviously the 257 doesn't come in play on 1st of June in their mind. Second thing, they talk about that they've received from Mr. Narayan Murthy a declaration that he's fit and qualified to be a director under section 274(1)(g). So obviously all this preparation was in offering for a very long period of time. So I fail to understand what was such an urgency that on first morning, which is a Saturday, you call a board meeting and say it's a very sudden event. It wasn't a sudden event. My point is very simple. Infosys is one company which we all have taken a lot of pride. It's India's pride. It was India's pride. Let me now make it very clear. It was India's pride. A company which has really risen above from all corporate governance practices. It has set standards for itself and for others to follow. It has fallen completely on all these issues. So I don't think there is anything illegal about this whole thing. But definitely illegality is not all what is really looked from Infosys point of view. What if suppose he had waited, the announcement would have been made on 1st of June that Mr. Narayan Murthy will be appointed as the executive director and a whole-time director and take it to an EGM. In any case, now you will require an EGM to appoint him as a whole-time director, because on this AGM, he cannot be appointed as a whole-time director.
Mr. Singhvi, you will grant that circumstances are such that the company needed to make this move as soon as possible to stem the perception that its growth strategy was not working out. Can it not be the case that as soon as Mr. Murthy made up his mind to agree to the proposal by the company to return, they did what was required legally to tick all the boxes? Now, you may term it as legal convenience, but the end result of this is that we have Mr. Murthy back at Infosys, which is something that most investors seem to approve of and have hope in. And so, really, does the process and the nitty-gritty of the process matter that much?
No, I concede on that point, but let me make it very clear that if it was so required, if Mr. Kamath was almost with a folded hand went to Mr. Murthy, and Mr. Murthy then said that I'll take some time to come back, how could it take 1 month in deciding that? And thereafter, what was the need in 15 days? If Infosys had waited for his answer for 1 month, I don't think in 15 days Infosys would have been up in fire that they couldn't wait for it. But going back on this, if this is what is coming out from Infosys, mind you, then we can't talk about other Indian companies who would be cutting a lot of corners on that. And my second point is that then how come there was such a large trading of the share on 31st May? That leaves a lot of doubts.
Okay, so I get your point. I get the point you're making, Mr. Singhvi, that while the company may have been faced with many different options and some options according to you would have been better than the option they picked, let's maybe give the company the benefit of the doubt that they wanted to do this as soon as possible, and hence, even if you think they cut corners, they moved as fast as they could to reappoint Mr. Murthy to the board and give him executive charge of the board. Your bigger grouse seems to be this question mark regarding insider trading, which is still only a question mark and we have no confirmation on this. And I think other issues regarding corporate governance that have come up in the last month or two that all put together seem to lead to a disappointment in the kind of standards that Infosys was known for.
Obviously, Menaka, from Infosys point of view, and personally I have a high regard for Mr. Narayan Murthy. He was the one who was there as the chairman of the SEBI appointed Committee on Corporate Governance. He wrote a big report on that. The report was taken by CII and a lot of people talked about it, but he said that no, this is what really is needed to be done, and this was in 2006 when SEBI incorporated all those things in clause 49. Second point which I have is that going forward, can really company talk about very high levels of corporate governance and ethics? And my point is not only the appointment of Mr. Narayan Murthy. You look at their AGM resolutions, it talks about appointing 2 independent directors who have been on the board for more than 15-16 years. whereas company's own stated corporate governance paragraph in the annual report of 2012 and 13 talks about 3 terms of 3 years each. So there have been a lot of other issues. I mean, age of retirement is 60 years as executive post, 65 is for all chairman, non-executive directors and all of that. Mr. Murthy comes back at 67. So there are a lot of issues. Why am I raising all these issues is that Infosys for all of us until this episode was a very, very high standard, high corporate governance company. And all of a sudden, I think they all have been thrown out of window.
All right, Mr. Singhvi, I hear you on the governance issues that you have raised, but I suppose the company could defend itself by saying that, well, there's nothing in the law against holding on to an independent director for more than 10, 15, 20 or even 30 years, not yet at least, not till the company's bill is passed, and Infy is just doing what every other company in this country is doing, even if it doesn't meet the standards that Mr. Murthy has set out for himself or that you expect him to have. Mr. Singhvi, thank you very much for joining us with your thoughts on this discussion. You can read the IIS report on the IIS website or the firm website as well. With that, we're going to take a quick break. On the other side, when is a subsidiary not a subsidiary but a permanent establishment? ITAC's ruling in the Convergys case may leave neither assessee nor revenue happy.